Hello everyone. In this video, we'll be looking to set up a basic environment needed for the web app testing or bug bounty, which includes tools like nmap, nikto, httpx, some of which is built using Docker. Some of them would be installed using apt or the yum package repository, and some of them will be downloaded from the Go utility. The requirements to run this Ansible playbook is Git and Ansible, out of which the Git can be installed using the package manager of apt or yum, and then the Ansible should be installed using pip for the latest version, as the default package repository of apt contains a older version of the Ansible. Before we move on to install the requirements to run this playbook, I have two versions of the playbook. One is in the main branch of the repository and another one is the remote branch of the repository. So the main branch deals with the playbook files that needs to be run directly on the server where you need the tools to be installed, and then the remote branch deals with the playbook files that you will be running on your machine. Specify the inventory of the machine that you need the tools to be installed. First, let's understand the directory structure of the Ansible playbook, see what the Ansible playbook does, and then we'll proceed on to run the playbooks of both versions, that is main and the remote version. So let me move into a directory, get the repository cloned, so the first and foremost file, the most important file, is the main.yml. Let's look into it. As you can see, there is only one task, that is name, set up the environment, and the host would be running on localhost. So the main.yml file contains the name of the play, that is set up the environment, and then specifies the host, which is localhost. Since we'll be running this Ansible playbook directly on the server where the tools need to be installed, the host is set to localhost. Otherwise, we would be specifying an inventory file or a group of hosts that is specified in the inventory. This option specifies the connection method to the host. Since we run it in local, we specified the connection as local. Otherwise, it would default to SSH, which we don't need in this case. Then we specify roles. Roles are group of tasks for a specific purpose. First, we'll specify the basic role, which ensures that all the basic tools that are needed for the day-to-day functioning is installed, and then we'll move on to the tools role, which would ensure all the tools that are necessary for the web app penetration testing are installed. For example, Docker, httpx, nikto, nmap, etc. So let's move on to the other files. Let's now navigate into the roles directory. We can see there are two roles, basic and tools. So let's first dive into the basic role. There are two directories here. The task directory contains all the task files that is related to this role, and the variables file will contain all the variables and its values related to this role. Let's first dive into the task directory. We can see here a main file which was already present in the root directory of the project, and also other files which are divided into its own YAML files to keep the project structure clean and neat, so it will be easy to make changes later. Once the individual files are created for each task, it is finally imported into the main.yml file using the import task statement. So let's see how it works. Let's open the main.yml file. So here we can see the first import statement is importing the file of eplrepo.yml. So this file enables the EPL repo in the Red Hat based distros only when the following condition is fulfilled, that is the Ansible OS family is either equal to Red Hat and also the Ansible distribution is not equal to Amazon. So this distribution refers to the Amazon Linux in Amazon EC2. This distribution does not contain the EPL repo, so we don't need to enable it. Next file will be update.yml, which updates and upgrades the system. Next is install packages.yml, which will install some of the tools like stop, tmux, tar and git. Then we'll proceed to create a dedicated user for storing all the tools and the necessary utilities required for the day-to-day functioning. Next step would be installing Docker. There are two variations for it. One is to install on the Debian based systems and another one is to install on Red Hat based system. Also we have included a statement or condition. So when should the task be included or imported? So the task in this file will be imported only when this variable, that is Ansible OS family, is equal to Debian, and the task in this file, that is redhat-docker.yml, will be imported only when the Ansible OS family is equal to Red Hat. This type of variables, that is starting with the Ansible keyword, are by default collected by the Ansible when we run the Ansible playbook. Next would be to install Go, that is present in this file. Next one, to install DNS related packages like dig, nslookup and etc. And then the last import task will be related to the time zone, which will set the time zone of the system according to your needs. Let's now see how the individual files are written. Let's first open the file of eplrepo.yml. The first one would be to import the EPL GPG key. So this line tells Ansible to become root, and this line tells the Ansible to become root using the sudo method, and then we'll be using the default module that is included in Ansible to import a key, that is RPM key, and then here is the URL from where the key would be downloaded. So this is the base URL, and this is a variable that will be replaced by using Ansible facts, that is collected during the initial run of the playbook, and this statement makes sure that the key is imported. The next step would be to install the EPL repo. So this line as usual tells Ansible to become root and to become root using the sudo method. So we'll be using the yum module in the Ansible to install the EPL repo using this base URL, and as usual this variable would be replaced by using Ansible facts, that is collected during the initial run of the playbook, and also this statement tells Ansible to make sure that the EPL repo is installed. Let's move on to the next file. The next file will be update.yml. As you can see, there are two tasks. One is for Debian based distros and another one is for Reddit based distros. So as usual it's got a name, this statement to become root, and then to become root using the sudo method. We'll be using the inbuilt module of apt present in the Ansible. So this statement is the equivalent of apt update, and this statement is equivalent of apt upgrade, and then this task will only be run when this condition is fulfilled, that is the Ansible OS family is equal to Debian, making sure that this task is run only on Debian based distros. And then the same procedure is repeated for the Red Hat based distros, the same name, statement to become root, and the method to become root using sudo, and the inbuilt module of yum. Here we are telling the name star to indicate all the packages in the OS, and then we are stating the state to be latest to ensure that all the packages are upgraded, and this statement to make sure the repository is updated, and this task will only be run when the Ansible OS family fact is set to Red Hat. Let's now move to the another file. The next file will be to install the packages. So this is the task to install basic packages. As usual it's got a name, a statement to become root, and the method to become root using sudo. This module will make sure to choose the appropriate package manager depending on the distribution. So we are providing the name of the packages that needs to be installed. In this case ACL, tmux which is a terminal multiplexer, htop which is a prettier version of top, tar is a compression utility, and git. And then we are making sure that the packages are up to date with this statement. Let's move to the next file. The next file will be to install the Docker. So let's start with the Debian Docker. To start with, all these tasks were created using the official documentation of the Docker. So to install the dependencies, we become root and we become the root using the sudo method. Using the apt manager, we install the following packages, that is CA certificates, curl and GNU-PG. Also we make sure to update the repositories. Next step will be to checking if the docker GPG key exists or not using the state module, which specifies whether a given file or directory exists or not, and register that variable or the result in the variable of docker underscore key. Next would be to add the GPG key if the key does not exist. I could not find a way to make these commands work with the Ansible modules, so instead I used the shell module to run these commands. Also to run multiple commands, I use the pipe character here, and then this statement makes sure that the above command is only run when the docker key does not exist. This task adds the repo to the sources file using the following commands. As I said, all these commands can be found on the official documentation of the Docker page. After adding the sources file, we need to update the packages. Since we already have a task written in the file update.yml, we simply include that file here. Now we need to install all the Docker related packages as usual to become root, and then to become root using the sudo method, we use apt to install the following packages, that is docker ce, which is community edition, CLI, containerd, docker buildx and docker compose. We make sure that all these packages are up to date, and then we also update the repository. Finally, we need to ensure that the docker group exists. Next is to create a non-root user to make sure that all the tools are properly installed and configured in the home directory of that user. So we create the user using this YAML file, and then we make sure that the created user is added to the docker group. So that user is Kali, is added to the docker group, and the condition is to append so that we do not override the users present in the docker group. Let's now check out the create user.yaml file. To create a user, we need the following parameters, that is the name, whether we want to create a home directory for the user or not, and then the hashed password, which can be generated using the following command. We specify the shell that the user will be using and the condition when this user needs to be created, that is if the current user running the Ansible playbook is not Kali. Next would be to add the user to the sudo group so that we can use the root privileges. For that we use the user module and then add the Kali to the sudo group. Now the sudo group is placed inside a variable because the sudo group in both Debian based distros and Red Hat based distros are different. So I have created a separate file collecting the value to replace in a different file. Let's move on to the next file. Let's clear the screen and look for the next file. So the next file will be to install Go. These tasks are also referred from the official documentation of the Go installation page. So first we download the tar file from this following URL. So you can change the version of Go if you need the latest one, and we put it in the temp directory. Next we need to make sure that we do not have any previous installation of Go. So we become root and remove the directory of the user local Go. This statement makes sure that the directory is deleted. Next we extract the tar file and move it to the user local directory using the unarchive module present in the Ansible. We provide the source that we downloaded and then the destination to be user local. Next we can delete the downloaded tar file as it is of no use after installing it. So we using the file module in Ansible and making sure that the state is absent so as to remove the downloaded file. And finally we add the go binary to the path. Since the default user local directory is not present in the path variable, so we create a line in the home directory of the Kali user in the bash rc file, and then we specify the line as export path equal to the already existing path variable, and then we append it actual path where our go utility resides, and then we make sure that the line is present. Now we have installed Go. Let's move on to the next file. Next would be to install the DNS related tools. So to install the DNS related tools, we become root using the sudo method, and then we make use of package module to choose the appropriate package manager depending on the distribution, and the name differs for Debian based and Red Hat based distro. So I have declared a variable here which would be replaced by using another file. We make sure that the state is latest, and then we update the repository. Let's check the final file. The final file will be related to the time zone. This task becomes root using the sudo method, and using the Ansible module of time zone, we specify the Asia Kolkata as our time zone. Now we make sure that all the variables are set which we included in the YAML files. So let's move on to the vars directory. We can see there is a main file. Let's open it. So these are the two main variables that were included in the YAML files. The first variable package name is collected by using the already declared variable and then specifying the appropriate Ansible OS family. So in this case, if the distribution is Debian based, the value will be replaced like this. So the package names variable will be included, which is present here, and then if the Ansible OS family is Debian, the DNS utils name will be replaced here. Otherwise the bind utils name will be replaced here. Same for the sudo group. The main sudo groups variable will be first referred, which is present here, and then depending on the Ansible OS family, either it's Debian, which will be replaced with sudo, or it will be replaced by will if the distribution is Red Hat based. Now we are finished with the basic role. Let's move on to the tools role. Now that we understood the role of basic, let's go on to the role of tools. This role also has a similar structure of tasks and variables. Let's explore the task directory. We can see a similar structure here. It consists of a main file which consists of all the import statements that will include all the files present here. Similar to the basic role, we have created individual files for the tasks that needs to be carried out to keep the directory structure clean. Now let's explore the main file. So this is the usual main.yml file. It includes all the import statements for all the files, but the difference here is we do not have any conditions, since we use the package module in the Ansible to choose the appropriate package manager for Debian or Red Hat based distro, and other tools are downloaded using Go and Docker, which do not need distro based tools. Now we will check out the individual files. Let's start with the create temp file. This file contains tasks that becomes root using the sudo method, and then creates a temp directory under the home directory of the Kali user under .ansible/temp. This directory is needed for Ansible to work properly under remote settings. Now we'll go for the other files. As the name suggests, this will become root using the method of sudo, and then install the nmap and netcat package. Since the netcat package differs in Red Hat and Debian based distro, I have included a variable. This variable will be declared in the vars directory main.yml file. Also, we have used the package module in Ansible so that we do not need to specify the exact package manager for each distro. Let's explore the next one. The nikto tool can be built using Docker. So we clone the nikto repo using the git module in the Ansible. Since we are running this playbook from the root user, we need to become the Kali user in order to place the cloned repository under the tools nikto folder in Kali. Give the URL of the repo and the destination under which the repo should be cloned. Next step will be building the Docker image. As usual, we use the sudo method and use the Ansible module of Docker image, giving the name and the path where the Docker file is present, which is under tools nikto, which we had previously cloned, and then the source would be built, whereas otherwise would be giving an image name. Since we don't have the image and we need to build, we give the build parameter here. Once the Docker image is built, we add the alias for the nikto docker container so as to simplify the process of running the nikto command. So we use the line in file module to enter an alias in the .bashrc file, which looks like this. Let's jump to the next file. These tasks are pretty simple. To clone the given repository under given directory, first we need to clone this eclipse repo which is present under this URL, and we clone it to this location, that is under usr local seclist. Next we will be cloning the SQL map repo using this URL under this directory. Let's move on to the next. So we'll be using a command module in the Ansible where we use the absolute part of the go utility and then provide the install command, providing a variable which will be in the form of loop, where every line present under this loop will be replaced here in the place of item. So this command will run for total of 5 times, installing all the tools, that is wayback URL, anu, gobuster, subfinder, and gather all URLs. Let's move on to the next. Since JQ tool is already available as a Docker image, we provide the base URL of it and we pull the Docker image using the docker_image module. Also we add an alias in the .bashrc file for the JQ command, which looks like this. This tool needs to be built using Docker, so we'll follow a similar procedure like the previous ones. First we'll clone the repo of the httpx, store it in the tools directory under httpx. We'll build the Docker image using the docker_image and we'll provide the path where the Docker file will be residing. Source will be built instead of a Docker image, and then we finally add the alias in the .bashrc file to make things simpler. Let's move on to the next one. We'll be using the line in file module to add a line to the bashrc file, which will look like this, which will append the home Kali go bin directory with the already existing path variable. Now that we have understood all the tasks present in the basic and tools role, let's get with running the playbook. Since the main branch contains the Ansible playbook that needs to be run directly on the server that you need the tools installed, we won't be installing the requirements on our machine for now. We'll install it later when we run the remote version of the Ansible playbook. So let's connect to the machine that we need the tools to be installed on. For this demo, I have created a DigitalOcean droplet that I will connect to. Let's connect to the instance. Now that we are connected, we can proceed to installing the requirements, that is Git and the Ansible package. To install Git, you would simply type the following command. Next, we need to make sure that we have pip installed. Once pip is installed, we can proceed on to installing the Ansible package. To install the Ansible package, use the following command. We are using the -- user flag to make sure that we install Ansible only for the current user. We are facing this warning which would indicate that installing the Ansible package using the pip under the root user can break the Python installation or the OS. If we want to override this, we can use this flag. Like this. Or if you need a safer way to install Ansible using the apt package manager, use the following command. Now since we have all the requirements to run the playbook, let's run the main.yml file. We can see that there is no errors when running the playbook. Since there are no errors running the playbook, let's check if all the tools are installed correctly by switching into the Kali user. So the tools directory is present, which would contain the tools repository like httpx, nikto, SQL map. So we can see that the directories are present. Also let's check if the Docker images are built. We can see that the httpx image is built, which is of around 700 megabytes. We can see also that the nikto image is built. Also JQ image is also pulled. Let's see if all the aliases are added and the path is also added or not. We can see that the path variable is added for Go utility, and then the bunch of alias, and also finally the tools that were installed using the Go, their path was also added to the path environment variable. Since this version of the playbook needed you to run directly on the server and install a bunch of tools, there is also an alternate way where you would install all the requirements on your machine and then provide the IP address of the remote machine, which would reduce the steps of installing requirements on the server. So let's test the other method. To test the remote version of the Ansible playbook, I have created a new DigitalOcean droplet. So let me navigate to the directory where we cloned the repository. Now as we can see here, we are in the main branch of the repository, so we need to switch to the remote branch of the repository. We can do that by using this command. So we can see some minor changes in the files. We can now notice a new file ansible.cfg which contains some of the configuration that is needed in running the Ansible playbook. Let's open it. The inventory parameter specifies the name of the inventory file. The inventory file is a list of IP address where the Ansible playbooks will be run. Next is roles path, the location where the roles are defined. We have defined it under the roles directory. We have set the ask pass parameter to be false since we will be using key-based authentication. We also need to make sure that the host key checking is set to false so as to avoid interaction. the remote user will be root, and then the private key that needs to be used to connect to the instance needs to be specified here. Let's create an inventory file and paste the IP address of the machine where we need to install the tools. Let's save and exit. Now make sure that you have both the requirements. So let's go ahead and run the I have written this playbook to be idempotent, meaning it will not make changes if the required conditions are already met, except for the task of installing Go, which will always remove the previous installation of Go and will install the required version even if the required version is already present. So that's it for this video. If you found it helpful, give a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you.